So it turns out that Kaldheim is actually going to have 4 different planeswalkers. 2 of them we are already familiar with in the form of Tybalt and Kea, but the other 2 are brand new and they just got revealed today. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about some Kaldheim goodness. We are right on the edge of Kaldheim spoiler season full on. It starts tomorrow. This feels like that moment where you have that parking lot full of untouched snow and and you just run up and I'm gonna make the bird feet. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is this like an okay boomer moment where it's like, okay grandpa, go on over to the parking lot. I'm gonna make big bird feet. He was on the Sesame Street. All right, but it's that sort of like fresh, untouched newness where we have no real clue 100% what things are going to be. But as the cards get spoiled more and more, it firms up, right? So it takes it from the land of imagination to reality, which is a fun journey. But being right here at the edge when everything is possible, the best place to be. So let's talk about the Planeswalkers. There's 2 of them. Now, we don't have spoiler cards for them. We have their background stories talking about their powers, things like that, and the images. So we can take a good look at what these planeswalkers are, and then when the cards actually show up, we can evaluate like the mechanics of the card and see how they fit against the planeswalkers. All right, so let's start out with Nico Heiress. All right, now Nico is originally from the world of Theros, and when Nico was young, an oracle prophesized their future, all right? That basically Nico would turn out to be an incredible athlete, a peerless javelinier. That's a weird word. Don't say that frequently in life. Hey, who's that javelinier over there? So, a peerless javelinier who never missed and went undefeated. This was the prophecy that was laid out for Nico. And you have to understand that this is the plane of Theros, where prophecy has genuine power. This isn't some just made-up nonsense, like, let me tell you your horoscope, you a Sagittarius or something? I can see you're a centaur. Like that sort of thing. It's actually genuinely a real thing. There is a goddess on Theros whose job is to maintain fate and the order, everyone in their place, everything as it should be, which is a pretty crazy concept. The idea that your existence is preordained and what will happen is all laid out is both interesting and, in a way, I suppose, boring if you can't escape outside of it. But we saw Klothys basically previously establish this, I'm going to keep everything in order by creating Calyx and sending Calyx after Elspeth. So Nico's actually going to run into a similar kind of situation where what happens is for years and years, Nico perfected the craft of being a javelineer. Javelin real good and real hard. You know what I mean? Real good javelin skills. So, never lost, never missed, but ultimately, Nico felt empty as a result of this experience. This was not fulfilling. Nico longed to do something that felt more meaningful, to be a hero. Whatever specifically that meant, on Theros specifically, what is a hero? It can vary from plane to plane, which is something that Nico started to learn once they ascended past the constrictions of their plane by becoming a planeswalker, right? So basically what happens, originally, Nico starts to diverge from the concept of wanting to fulfill their destiny. I don't want to be a javelineer anymore. So ultimately, what Nico does is just forfeits a tournament, just concedes and goes, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm breaking with what my fate's supposed to be. Now, Klothys didn't like this and dispatched an agent similar to Calyx to go after Nico, but more in a nudge Nico back on. It's like a straighten up and fly right kind of message where it's like, hey, get back in line, don't do what you're doing. But the whole confrontation between that agent and Nico actually ended up eventually causing Nico's spark to ignite. So as a result, that was where Nico was kind of flung out into the blind eternities to explore a bunch of different planes of existence, still clinging to that principle of wanting to be a hero, but being so naive and having such a black and white concept of what a hero was specifically from Theros, not really prepared for the culture shock of finding out that heroes are different things on different planes of existence. So we don't know exactly why Nico ended up on Kaldheim. That's pretty much most of the background information. Now, in terms of the actual like power suite, Nico has the ability to form mirror shards. So that's what's being depicted in the artwork. These are essentially mirror shard javelins. The fact that Nico's being reflected in one of them is there to help illustrate that. So there's a few different properties to these. The first thing about these mirror shards is they can be conjured and shaped into any sort of projectile, maybe theoretically other things as well, but specifically what Nico uses it for is forming projectiles. Now, those projectiles, when they make contact with a being, can trap that being inside of an interdimensional prison for a very brief amount of time. So, for example, if it was to transport somebody like you or me, just a regular human, we would be trapped inside this space for a few minutes. If it was somebody incredibly powerful, they would be in there for a few seconds at most. It might even be an instantaneous sort of pop in, pop back out sort of setup. It depends, but that's roughly the power range that's given to it. Now, this ability is used not only in a sort of like containing your enemies way, but also in baffling your enemies, being able to, for example, you could there's examples that are given of what could be done with Nico that haven't happened. So this isn't part of the story. This is just an example of what Nico could do. Nico could have another planeswalker get inside one of these shards, right? Because you can break out of the shard like inside of the interdimensional space if you're struggling against it and fighting to get out. But if you choose to reside in it and not fight against it, then you can be transported in it. So with that, Nico can throw these javelins wherever with the perfect aim. And, you know, you could throw a planeswalker shard behind somebody's back. It lands. He comes out of the javelin. He's right there. They're not expecting that. It can be used in that kind of a maneuver, or like to save somebody from something. If there's something calamitous is about to happen to somebody, hit them with one of these projectiles, pull them into the space, save them from their fate. So it's got a number of tactical applications. And one other interesting aspect about Nico is that Nico is actually a blue-oriented planeswalker. And in this case, oriented more on physical health and perfection than a sort of mental pursuit, which is not the norm for blue mages. So we'll see how that ends up panning out flavor-wise, because I am genuinely curious about that. And it is a good idea to diverge from the norm here and there, right? The thing is, you have a certain range of what you expect normally when it comes to these sort of character designs. And once you have a bunch that fall in the normal range, then making one that stands out, it feels like it fits a little bit more. It gives us something different to work with. And I like that. I like when they explore different concepts. So that's the first planeswalker. The second planeswalker is Tyvar Kell. Now, he is an elf, specifically actually from Kaldheim, all right? He is a big fighter and a big bragger, basically. When you look at him, you can see he's a gigantic, muscular dude. Like, remember, this is an elf. When you're looking at him, you see right away, this is not how elves traditionally look. He is a lot more beefy than your traditional elf. And he likes to get into big fights. And he also likes to talk at length about his accomplishments, all the things that he's going to do. Now, he's descended from what used to be gods on Kaldheim. Originally, the Ainir, which were like the ancient elves, they were the gods of Kaldheim. Now, their leaders were overthrown by the Skadi, which these are the newer gods. These are the gods that will be presiding over Kaldheim during the set when we go through everything that's in there, right? So they trapped the old elven leaders inside of trees. And to me, that's absolutely insane. You know what I mean? Like, normally elves are very in tune with nature, and you would think like if elves were trapped inside of trees, they could be pulled out of the trees. And it's just like, it's just so crazy to me to think of elves being trapped in something that wouldn't really feel like an elven prison. Although I guess in one way, depending on how those elves are aligned, it might be more comfortable being trapped inside of a tree. Either way, I just thought that was really, really interesting. So after the leaders of the elves were overthrown, the elvish basically broke down into two different groups. There were wood elves and shadow elves. And they were split for like many, many, many years until eventually a new king reunited them. And after that, basically the character of Tyvar, he is the younger brother of this king who reunited the wood and shadow elves into a more glorious group. And so he's the king's younger brother. He lives in his brother's shadow, but he's not resentful of it. It more just actually makes him more delusional, where he believes he's going to, well, maybe not delusional, but not so much in touch with reality, because he is capable. So I don't want to make it sound like he's not a capable individual. I guess the best way to put it is currently he's young, he's eager to prove himself, and as a result, he's more likely to bite off more than he can chew. His eyes are bigger than his stomach, as they say, right? So it's that kind of a scenario. He's a good person underneath, but he's obsessed with making his own name. So he's always interested in new accomplishments and things that will make him look more glorious. But it's not, while it is self-serving, it's not like selfish in terms of when he goes out questing or whatever he's doing with people, they go out on raids, whatever it is, he is sure to always brag about their accomplishments as well and call them out for all the fantastic things that they have managed. So he's about talking himself up, but also about talking others up and having that camaraderie and that sort of like, he likes to hang out with warriors and just fight and party, all that sort of like good Viking feeling stuff, right? So it's a Viking like beefcake elf concept, right? He likes to fight, he likes to party, he's all beefy and tattooed. Those tattoos, by the way, are basically a sign of reverence towards the world snake Coma, and a lot of the elves will have on Kaldheim will have their hair braided or have tattoos or other things in celebration of the serpent. Now Tyvar, he likes to wander around shirtless because he's all buff, so he likes people to know how tough he looks, and he also likes to be like, hey, look at me, I'm shirtless in the cold. So he's got that sort of like machismo level going on, which is very interesting for an elf, right? Elves normally aren't portrayed in this more like really stout warriors. You know what I mean? They're well trained with the longbows or stealthier. There's all kinds of different ways that elves will have the advantage, but rarely is it sheer brute force, right? Because Tyvar isn't using super advanced gear or anything. It's mostly like a bronze alloy mix of some decent equipment, according to the information that was put out. So he does, although he does have an actual obvious planeswalker power, which makes armor not quite as necessary, and that is he has an incredible level of control over transmutation of the natural world. That means that basically, if he can get access to substances in the natural world, he can convert other substances in the natural world to those substances. So this extends to his body as well. He could reach out and put his hand on a rock wall and turn his hands and his entire body, over at least the overskin, into rock, right? So all of a sudden, he's got rocky skin. Or if you want to get more intense, he could literally reach down into lava and like coat his body, change his body into lava. So he can change parts of the world that way. Like, to use the lava example again, he could make a safe pathway across lava by turning it into obsidian or turning it into some dirt that was nearby, whatever it is that would create a stone, whatever would make it safe to briefly cross across the lava. He can make himself armored. He can make giant thorns grow up out of the ground if he has access to like life that is nearby in terms of wildlife that has thorns and things. It's a very potent ability that extends to everything that is natural. So he can convert from anything natural and do it to anything natural, which extends to him and all other living beings as well. And as a result of this, this has made Tyvar an elf who pays a lot of attention to his surroundings at all times and has informed his fighting style because it gives him a lot of unique advantages in the moment that weren't anticipated. So he's a very quick thinker. Now, overall, to me, these are actually some really cool concepts for some planeswalkers. I'm curious to see numerically what the cards are actually going to break down to be, like what sort of abilities and loyalty and all that. But overall, I'm glad to get more flavor and story behind characters. It's far more satisfying to me than just getting a tiny little one-sentence statement. You know what I mean? Like, these are supposed to be full-on individuals, and Planeswalkers are special creatures that are a cut of, like, well, they're not creatures, obviously. They're a special type of card that's a cut above your regular creatures and even legendary creatures, right? Because Planeswalkers are almost like legendary creatures that can traverse the multiverse, making them far more interesting overall in what they can bring to the table. So, let me know which of these two Planeswalkers you found more compelling as a story, what you think about the artwork. Both of the artworks are done in a talented manner. You know, I look at Magic artwork and I go, dude, it's crazy to me. Like, I draw little stick men and stuff like that. They look terrible, and people can do this. It's crazy. I couldn't do any of this, right? So, whatever. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for coming by. I'm going to leave some videos up on the screen here for you to check out. So, if you want to see the newest Magic lore video, if you like Magic stories, Planeswalkers, all that goodness, come on over to my Magic lore channel, Fantasy Geographic. And if you just want to have a laugh at something absolutely ridiculous, then watch me hate dragon fruit for the first time in my life. All right, so thanks for coming by, my friends. If you like what I'm doing, like, comment, subscribe, because that's all great for the channel. Goodbye for now.